So I keep hearing about China's future economic dominance, and I just have to say it's not coming. It's just not. There's several economic challenges China faces that will hold China back, the largest of all being Xi Jinping himself. The firing of any detractors within his administration and the consolidation of power by Xi at the highest levels has stifled policy innovation and dampened the entrepreneurial spirit at a time when China's traditional growth drivers are waning. So they need new ideas, new entrepreneurs, and new models that are not coming. The situation is exacerbated by the government's reluctance to address fundamental issues such as faltering growth models that were foundationally developed on real estate. There are financial vulnerabilities in China's overseas investments, lackluster demand both internally and externally, as well as a crisis in confidence of the future of China and its openness to business. These factors not only undermine the Chinese Communist Party's credibility, but also increase the likelihood of social unrest. Throughout 2023, signs of a deepening economic slump in China were evident. These included the withdrawal of foreign investors, credit rating downgrades by Moody's, stagnation in the property market, a decline in the stock market, and growing youth unemployment. And when I say decline in the stock market, I mean China has experienced a $6.3 trillion sell-off. That's trillion with a T across its three major stock exchanges due to tanking confidence. This means Euronext and Japan have passed the Shanghai Index for third and fourth place, respectively, on the list of largest exchanges in the world. Now, number one and number two are the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, or actually flip that, New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, and they are by far the largest, and both are U.S. exchanges. And when I say by far, I mean the top two exchanges have a market cap of over 50 trillion. That's more than the next 10 exchanges combined. So when I see people tell me that they think the dollar hegemony is going away and the U.S. is going to collapse, I gave them this look. Which is also the look I give my teen son when he wants to wear his slides in 10 inches of snow because his drip is bussin', apparently. Anyway, for China, these trends are expected to continue in 2024, hindered by ambiguous and contradictory policy signals, geopolitical concerns, and the CCP's rigorous regulatory measures. Now, structural impediments include the following. They have demographic challenges, which I've talked a lot about before because China has negative population growth, and that is a bad thing for an economy. There's diminishing labor cost benefits that used to drive manufacturing to China, but now we are seeing a pivot to South America and Africa because it's just cheaper to hire workers there. There's high debt levels, especially at local government levels, and Western efforts to reduce dependencies due to not only the costs, but the optics of doing business with China at this point. And there's an over-reliance on state-led investments, which are likely to dampen any prospects for significant economic revival. Now, even as Beijing attempts to boost confidence and demand by increasing infrastructure investment to meet its ambitious 5% growth target for 2024, these efforts will likely fall short without any substantial and bold reforms, and they really won't create anything new. It's just driving through real estate and buildings to try and keep people employed for employment's sake at this point. And there are four key economic elements that will likely hinder China's total recovery in 2024. First of which is the diminishing benefits from the abandonment of the zero COVID policies. Now, they're still riding the wave of abandoning last year's policy of zero COVID, and they reopened last year. Those gains are set to fade with factors like slowing income growth, increasing unemployment, fiscal tightening at local government levels, declining property values, and a series of defaults impacting consumer confidence and spending. This is going to impact the recovery from COVID significantly. In fact, we probably will likely see it stall out. There's also going to be a stagnation in the real estate sector, which we've already seen, so that's an easy prediction. This used to be a cornerstone of China's economic strength. The real estate market is unlikely to provide a significant boost despite a recent tranche of stabilization policies and attempts by the CCP. This is due to continued low demand from homebuyers and reduced land acquisitions by financially strained property developers over the past 2 years. If you didn't notice, a bunch of property developers have gone under in China, so they're not about to be buying more properties. There's also reduced external demand for exports. International demand for Chinese goods, particularly from the United States and Europe, is expected to be weaker than in 2023, and this will be due to high interest rates, a sluggish global growth, as well as, again, the optics of doing business with China. And this is impacting China's export sector, which is a significant portion of its economy. Now, finally, there's the inadequate government response to economic issues. And you would think that an authoritarian government would have the ability to just generate policy from the top down, but they don't. They are reactive, and they take a very piecemeal approach to financial crises. And when it comes to things like when the banks and real estate agencies were defaulting, they didn't do a very good job of handling that. They don't take a comprehensive and preemptive approach to reforms, and this is going to erode confidence. They don't have rules in place to deal with situations such as this because they've never experienced it before, and this is going to challenge the government's administrative capabilities. Now, furthermore, the political environment, which is led by President Xi Jinping and his centralization of power and its emphasis on security over economic growth, is expected to negatively impact confidence among consumers, businesses, and investors. This political focus may also slow the government's response to emerging economic and financial risks. So there's just a general indecisiveness because they all look upward to Xi Jinping, and he is having to make the singular decisions all the time. A leader cannot do that. He has to distribute the decision making downward, and in an authoritarian system like China's, it just isn't happening. Now, while an immediate crisis is not really anticipated, these conditions are likely to prolong China's economic difficulties and reveal cracks in the CCP's perceived competence and legitimacy. It's also why I don't believe there's going to be a war anytime soon over Taiwan, because they just can't get their own economic house in order. So having what would essentially be a crisis for their economy by going to war with Taiwan is not something they really want to face down at this point. Now, unless there is an unexpected shift in Xi Jinping's approach or a radical pivot towards large-scale consumer stimulus and structural reforms, which there really isn't, China's economy is set to underperform in 2024 and likely continue to do so for the foreseeable future. While the CCP's rule remains stable due to Xi Jinping's emphasis on security, there is a growing long-term risk that the government's slow reaction to financial instability and the social unrest that it causes could ultimately jeopardize the CCP's control over China.